Jam TV, show 145. Get it? Hey, gentlemen, how you doing?
Hi. Hey, Davey.
Hello, guys.
145. It's show 145. Get the blues. Get it?
I get that.
Got it. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm on my phone.
All right. Glad to hear that.
Yeah, I'm on my phone instead of my computer because I'm waiting. I'm waiting for. Oh my God, what's my brother doing?
What is your brother doing?
My brother Wesley is texting me from Connecticut.
There you go.
Say hello to Wes for me.
I'll have to. I'm going to be signing off because I have to go to Long Beach. I know it's crazy.
Wow, what are you doing in Long Beach?
Long Beach, my daughter, my youngest daughter, the 23-year-old.
Yeah.
She's an artist. She's going to college, and she has an exhibit that she's got her items in a museum.
What kind of exhibit is it? What does she do? What kind of stuff?
Well, she does drawings, paintings, all that kind of stuff, Ed.
Artsy stuff.
Yeah, it's artsy. That's right. So my wife is on her way, coming home from work, and then I'm going to get in the car and go. But I'm going to tune into you guys. I definitely will watch the show later.
From the traffic. You're going to watch from the traffic on the way to Long Beach.
Yeah.
Very good.
Definitely say hi to Wesley for me. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, Bill, I will tell him so. Yeah, what he's doing is he's texting me videos. He just texted me a video of Herbie Hancock.
Whoa.
Nice.
Yeah. It's but yeah, it's all good, man.
Is he still in Connecticut?
Yes, he's still in Connecticut. He's in Byram.
Still in Byram. Still in Chickahominy, baby.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Yeah, he's yeah. That's where he's at.
He doesn't still live like near the firehouse, does he? Or does
No. He finally that's been gone. Where the hell is he? He's down near Byram School. If you remember Byram School.
Oh yeah.
Elementary school area.
Yep, sure.
Yeah, okay, that's where he's at.
Fantastic.
Nice.
Have a great trip to Long Beach. You taking off now, or are you going to hang for a few minutes?
Well, she's not here yet, so I'm hanging.
All right, Bill Nolan, entertain us. Well, get it one song.
One song
for Dave Robinson.
If you had to go somewhere. Everything sound okay? Remember when the days were long, roll beneath a deep blue sky. We didn't have a care in the world, when mommy and daddy standing by. When happily ever after fails, we've been poisoned by these fairy tales. Lawyers dwell on small details, since daddy had to fly. Well, I know a place where we can go, untouched by man. We sit and watch the clouds roll by, tall gray waves in the wind, and you can lay your head down on the ground. Let your hair fall all around me. Offer up your best defense. This is the end of the innocence. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, But now those skies are threatening. They're beating plowshares into swords for this evil orange man that we elected king. Armchair warriors often failed. We've been poisoned by these fairy tales. The lawyers clean up all details since Daddy had to lie. And I know a place where we can go, still untouched by man. We'll sit and watch the clouds roll by. All grass waves in the wind, and you can lay your head down on the ground. Let your hair fall all around you. Offer up your best defense. This is the end of the innocent. Who knows how long that this will last? Now we've come so far so fast. But somewhere back there in the dust is that same small town in each of us. I need to remember this. So baby, give me one last kiss. Let me take one long last look. Daddy had to fly, and I know a place where we can go, untouched by man. We'll sit and watch the clouds roll by, tall grass wave in the wind, and you can lay your head down on the ground. Let your hair spill all around me. Offer up your best defense. This is the end. Oh, this is the end. Oh, this is the end of the innocent. That's music to hit the 405 on, baby. You know?
Fantastic.
Thank you for that, Don Hanlon. I love it.
Yep. You know, gets very little credit on that song is Bruce Hornsby, who is the co-author.
Tell me about.
And you know, the piano playing is so signature Bruce Hornsby. He's got that great style that's just like so unmistakable. But it's always like, I saw a clip of him playing that song on Jay Leno. And Jay Leno, and now doing the Don Henley song, you know, and it's like,
right.
You do a good Leno.
Like, hello.
Yeah.
I wrote that too. You know?
You do a good Leno. Do you do a good Ed Train on Jam TV? I don't know if you do that.
I don't know. You're harder. It's harder to get your essence, man. You're not enough. You know, in your own way, you're just a different kind of cartoon character.
There it is. Exactly. So yeah, that's cool. You did that really nicely. I enjoyed that.
Exactly.
Oh, thank you.
It was real good.
Am I a little top endy here?
No, you sound great.
You're okay?
Unusually great.
No, because what's funny is I'm still set up from when I was trying to work the little harmonizer thing in here. And
God, you got torn a new one on the harmonizer. I was trying to be.
I'm so okay with that. I actually wrote Randy afterwards, and I said, "Don't feel bad."
You
man.
forgave him. You forgave him.
No, I didn't feel bad from the beginning. I was interested in the input. You know, it's not going to change whether I use it or don't use it. but I just wanted some critiquing so that I could get
I watched
a sense.
the whole segment again, and like David started out. He was like, "Bill, you're a fantastic artist. You're really great. I really wrote, but I think maybe you could have used a little more guitar or whatever." And then I come in and I'm like, "Yeah, well, technology is something you need to have a learning curve." And Randy comes on. It was ass. The whole thing sounded like ass.
Well, it's like his take on that is much closer generally to my take on the whole thing with me anyway. So it's like, the praise comes in and I'm sort of like, oh, that's nice. But
so are you a guy that can't take a compliment?
no, I can take a compliment. And one of the funny things, one of the things I wanted to share was, and I haven't been here. Yeah, right. We haven't been here since then. I had, honestly, what I would characterize as my worst gig ever.
Oh no! At the Nomad with the
and just to be clear, don't blame the venue. No, I mean it's not the venue's fault that someone was booked there who shouldn't be playing there.
Oh God! So what happened? What happened?
Well, this was a litany of things that rubbed me wrong, like right from the beginning. Like for starters, the gig is 10-1. 10-1 when you're in a band. There's camaraderie, there's fun, there's like whatever. 10-1 when you're a solo guy. When the clock strikes midnight and you've got another hour to go, and you're just
10-1, 3 hours on a solo. I don't want to DJ for 3 hours
on a solo Saturday night. Okay,
ouch.
Then the venue itself, which was Tavern on Main, has 2 flights, and I mean 2 legit flights with landings. 2 flights up for load-in. Okay, that to me is just
you couldn't get the handicap sticker elevator on the way up. You couldn't do that.
Well, there's an elevator there, but unfortunately, I don't have a handicap sticker. And it's like, when you, and also the bread is like typical bread. If I were doing like 3 hours from 6 to 9, which to me, you could get more pay for that somehow.
So were there people there? Was it like crowded?
Were there people there? It was packed.
Oh, so nobody was listening. Everybody was talking.
Well, there's people always jump right to like nobody's listening. To me, like having nobody listen, that happens in the Horseshoe. And that's
but you hate that. I know you hate that. You've been on the mic before at Bobby Q's, and you're like, "Hello, is anybody here paying attention?"
Well, it's just to me. It's like I can remember once telling you, if you're gonna chat it up, do it in the back over there. Don't do it like
the camera is right here.
Microphone, So anyway, this thing was packed, and the demographic was not something that you would offhand say like, these are Bill's people, like you wouldn't think that.
This is 30-something drunk hookup night. Is that what's going on?
Well, it was young, obviously, and young and really loud. Like every person in the place was chatting it up like loud. So at one point, and there's like a lot of drunken young ladies there. Now on many cases, you would say fabulous, but they sort of had an agenda, and I was not going to help them make that agenda. They sort of wanted to hear something. So this one girl starts dancing, just sort of free form dancing, and over her shoulder she looks at me and she goes like, "You got to go younger." That's what she says.
Nicki Minaj, play a Nicki Minaj song.
Well, wait, because then these girls sit at the table just to my left, and the one says to me, "Do you know any rap?" And I say, "I know a lot of rap. I don't play any of it." And then they get into another thing. The next one I get is, "Do you know any Whitney Houston?" And that one I had to actually say, "What of this?" Is going to lead you to an assumption that I'm going to be doing. And
it was the ball gown that tricked them. Yeah.
I want to dance with somebody. I mean, it's like, how would you think that that's where you're going to end up with this?
Ouch.
So it was a stylistic thing. And if they had wanted the stylistics, I could have played that, but they didn't, they were a certain demographic,
Oh man, I'm sorry, Bill. Oh, I hate those gigs where it's not meshing. It's just not happening.
Well, at 9:15,
yeah,
it's a 10-1 gig. At 9:15, I knew it was going to be a disaster. I just you could just see it. And then by 12, it was really kind of, it was kind of cleared out, but there were about like 7 people there. And usually that's my strong suit. Like the last 7 people in a joint. Usually that's like, those are the people that I always play to.
Right.
I didn't have one person in the thing that I established a connection with, not one.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for one person.
Well, that's not your fault. It was a bad hire. Like
it was.
They wanted to push the demographic in a certain direction, and they didn't. And they thought by hiring you that would happen. But how was it? I think
there was some miscommunication because Ray got me the gig. And I said to him when he talked about it, I said it's 10-1, and I said, "Are they looking for dance music? Is that what they're looking for?"
Yes,
that's
what I would have told you that.
They're just looking for something to bridge the thing. Well, I talked to the owner when I'm there, and the word dance comes out in the second sentence.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay.
God.
This is not that.
And Ray Simonelli's like, oh, you'll like Bill Bellamy. He's great. He's super. He'll play dance music, sure.
What he did get out of this is he got some good feedback from me.
Oh boy.
And to me, this is the kind of place that like Mark Zellens could play. This is a place where people who put on a show, like they do a show, and it's very much attention getting kind of show.
Sure.
And that would, I think, play there. And plus, I know Mark has a much broader. It's not a broader repertoire. It's just it's a more contemporary repertoire. He could do things that they would go for. They were asking me about Journey, and they're asking me about this other stuff, and I'm just kind of like. And then one person was like looking at my rig, such as it is, which was really just my PA head.
Yeah.
And they're going like, so what do you got here? And I go like, it's just a PA head, And I think what they were looking for is like
DJ,
a looper and a drum machine. And
no, they were looking for a DJ rig. They thought you were a DJ.
And my advice to the owner, if he wanted to hear my advice, would be just go with a DJ. You don't need.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's
maybe I'll call a DJ that gig. My God. So I got my, I could do that gig with my theremin if they like. If they want to shoot completely in the wrong direction, they can hire me with my theremin right here.
The theremin plays at any age. That
exactly.
Plays, it's the solo guy with the guitar doing like, I played Madonna. I have a lot of 80s things that I've sort of tweaked for, solo guitar. And I'm playing this stuff and I'm getting nothing. Like there was one guy who did this very half-hearted thing like this, and I could tell by the way he was, and he was a guy with he was the old guy with the much too old to be wearing the ponytail.
He gave you a golf clap. Yep.
And he's giving me the clap and not literally, and like I'm looking at it and it looks like he doesn't want to be seen doing it. He's doing it so subtly that he's sort of saying, I kind of like that. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I can't let anyone know. It's like fun stuff.
Well, there it is.
Well, my friends, I'm out.
David, great to see you. Have a fantastic time.
Will do. Bill, I'm sorry about that gig, my brother.
It was nobody's fault. Really.
Yeah.
It was everybody's fault.
I hear you.
All right, Dave. See you later. Have a good time tonight.
I'll talk to you later. Okay.
Have a good one, Dave.
That's Dave. There he goes. Good stuff.
Yeah, it was wow. That was kooky.
That's wild. Yeah. So play another song. Then I'll show you my weird theremin rig that I have set up here.
There's the setup, kids. I'm warming up for a theremin act.
There it is.
That probably came out of that last gig I had. Like. Winding your way down to Baker Street, light in your head and dead on your feet. Well, another crazy day. You drink the night away and forget about everything. City desert makes you feel so cold. It's got So many people, but got no soul. And it's taken you so long to find out you were wrong, and you thought you had everything. Used to think that you were so easy. Used to say that it was so easy. You're trying now. Another year and then you'll be happy. Just 1 year and then you'll be happy. You're crying now. While down the street there's a light in a place. Opens the door and got that look on his face, and he asks you where you've been. You tell him who you've seen, and you talk about anything. He's got this dream about buying some land. He's gonna give up the booze and the one-night stands, and he'll settle down in some quiet little town and do about everything. But you know he'll always keep moving. You know he's never gonna stop moving, 'cause he's a rolling stone. When you wake up, it's a new morning. Sun is shining, it's a new morning. And you're going home. It's kind of a truncated, low energy version, but
That's cool. I don't think I've ever heard you do that one before.
no, I don't do it very often. I did it the other night at Nomad, and it went over no worse than anything else I did.
Yeah, I'm laughing. Someday we will look back at this and laugh. But
you know, it's like one thing that's fabulous. You do a gig like that, and you know, I can't say I didn't question myself, because I sat there and I went like, have I become like too niched? You know, am I just too much of something? Do I need something that's more, you know, big, bold, popular kind of thing? But I tend to like want to do that more with a group and not with myself. You know, like with myself, I like to just be what I am.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not doing Nicki Minaj on the accordion. You know what I mean? Like, I think I'm being crazy. I'm like, oh, we're doing Britney Spears on ukulele, tuba, and accordion at the jam, and it's like, okay, that's Britney Spears. That's 25-year-old music, you know.
Which is that's scary,
or
right there.
30-year-old music, you know. I have, like I say, I have, people don't believe me, but I have students every year. I'll have like freshmen or sophomores that I get for the first time in school. And, you know, I get to know these kids. Like I'm not teaching a group of 30. I'm like teaching one kid at a time.
Yep.
And so I get to know them, and I say, so what are you listening to? What do you like? What do your parents listen to? Whatever. And they haven't heard of, haven't heard of you haven't heard of anybody in the top 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. You haven't heard of anybody. You haven't heard their name. You know what I mean?
It's pretty true. And they pop up quickly.
Right. Absolutely. And they know them. They know, of course, everybody. But they've never heard of the Beatles. They've never heard of Prince. They've never heard of Michael Jackson. Never heard of him, because they're listening to other kinds of music. Now then, I've got a kid that like knows more than I do about everything, you know, and even likes Tom Waits, like a kid that knows everything. And and they say, well, my grandmother listens to this music. And I go, oh, how old's your grandmother? And they're like, she's 52. I'm like,
Right.
oh, or whatever.
But you know, there's something, there's something to this, and I know we've talked about this before. Like, with my mom, when I would be home and I'm listening to music, and she goes like, well, that's your music, and I used to say to her, I said, Mom, I like Sinatra as much as you do.
Right.
Like it's not my music, it's just music, and not all music connects, but still, it's just music, and it's painful to me to see that, much of the generation, because so much of everything is so available and it's so right there and right now, that they don't get a sense of perspective and history, and they don't get a sense to sit there and look at some, going back, like, is Bruno Mars an oldies act? But they don't get a chance to like see him, and then see Prince, and then see Jackie Wilson, and then, like, they don't get it, and I don't know if that would appeal to them at all, because I think many of their tastes are driven more by the production values of today. It's the sound of what it is.
But they get that through me, So I go,
Right.
what, they'll play me a track, show me a video, and I'll say, you know what, that reminds me of something I used to listen to, and like something that the drum sounds like, and it's a track, it's a loop, but it reminds me of a certain song, or reminds me of the Police, and it reminds me of something like that. But you got to remember, these acts have been long gone before their parents were born. You know? And so we're just old and wise, and we are exposed to so many different things.
Well, and you're what even you didn't live in the time of some of the things that you admire. Like,
absolutely.
I came at a time, really, because I was born in 1951, so I was, and I had two older sisters, so I was cognizant of what was going on in 55. Right. I knew the artists, I knew the songs. I was 4 years old, but I knew this stuff. Right. And then Elvis in 56 and 50, it's like the Everlys, all of that. I really knew it.
That's that's a minute before my time, right? So that came in like history. Like Beatles for my mother was a haircut. Like she would look at, you're at long hair, you look like a Beatle, right? Yep. It was an insult, and but the Everly Brothers and the things that led up to the Beatles, like I never heard anything. I heard Andy Williams, and then I heard the Beatles, and it was like, oh my God. And then I heard the Rolling Stones. I'm like, oh, it's too hard for my ears, But and then you get to know the things, like you listen to, like, where did the Beatles get those chords, and where did there are other people that existed before they did, but
a lot of the stuff where they got those chords, we weren't exposed to that music, because it would be, Carl Perkins, we all know his songs now by other people covering them and that kind of stuff. But that kind of guitar stuff was also being done in England by, guys, Vincent and the Blue Caps and a lot of these rock and roll bands. And it's like, we didn't have like radio that was rootsy, but you could absolutely tell how ersatz frigging Pat Boone was doing Blue Suede Shoes than hearing, Carl Perkins do Blue Suede. It's just like it, and if you couldn't hear that, then you're in a different category, and I think there were some things my oldest sister was much more comfortable with some of that stuff, whereas, I'm 5 years younger than she was, and it's like, when I was going into it, it's like, no, Pat Boone is not happening,
Right.
I did always like Andy Williams, though.
Where do you sit on 80s, alt 80s stuff, like Tears for Fears and Adam Ant and,
I literally love it. I love it,
Very cool.
And I mean, I mean, Tears for Fears, it's funny. I was processing some beach cards in row 8 and I was just shuffling something on my phone and I was like, Tears for Fears, and I'm listening. They had some stuff that is just, like Everybody Wants to Rule the World is one of the great songs of all time, I think.
Right.
And
well, okay. But at some point, like maybe it was the early 90s, at some point music went like this and you stayed on your course, And
the 90s are a different ball of wax for me. Like the 90s, there's a lot of stuff in the 90s that just didn't appeal to me much, All
right.
And but the 80s, there was in particular a radio station out in Long Island called LIR.
Sure.
And LIR was one of these stations that they played they played stuff which was basically a lot of it was what was on MTV and stuff that wasn't on MTV. But they had a Sunday night show called Off the Boat, and they would play import stuff from England. And, I never lost my Anglophile thing as far as music goes, because the Brits always had like their finger on certain pulses. Not always, but they did a lot. And, I would hear something there, and I had a buddy who we were carbon copies of each other in terms of our taste. My buddy would hear it too. And I would go to this disco mat on like Broadway in like 68th or something, and I'd buy like a 12-inch of what I just heard or something like that. And I was making cassette mixtapes like crazy. And, the ones I made in like 84, 85, 86, on until, like 88, 89. And then I think at that point CDs started hitting or something. I might be wrong on that, but at some point, and this guy, like we're big fans of African music. Like we both love African music. And
like Hugh Masekela and Oliver Mbuzu.
But yes, absolutely. And I have this, playlist on my iPod, and it's like, it's 367 songs, but the duration of the set list is 1 day, 8 hours, something else, because there's a lot of Fela on there. And if you know Fela, every one of his songs is like 12 minutes long,
right.
And he's kind of like the James Brown of Africa, kind of, it's kind of, his band's got like that groove. But my friend turned me on to a bunch of stuff, and he just made this mixed thing that he sent me, he sent it to me today, and it's these African female singers, and there's just something like it's so sophisticated and great, and you're not encumbered by the words because you don't understand what they're saying.
Right. I see. That's what most words sound like to me. I don't really listen to the word, so it sounds like that. It sounds like music. Mm-hmm. Words on most songs sound like a saxophone to me.
No, I mean, the music is just unbelievably good. And then I sent him back some things of like, this Tuareg desert, African band that plays, and they're almost like blues, but it's blues on from the desert, like from the Sahara,
That's very cool.
And there's this other album I really liked on CD, Ray Lima and Professor something or other, and this Bulgarian choir. So it's a Zairian playing with, this Bulgarian women's choir.
Wow.
And it's like an Afro beat with an in tune, like Bulgarian choir, because like some of the Eastern European stuff can get kind of like, I'm just blown away. Like
microtonal. Yeah.
You think a 3.5 is an interval, like it's
right.
like, but these are things. And I sent him that, the Mizaluba, a Congolese mass, so beautiful. And I've been into that since 1968. It was in a movie called If, that it was like If with 3 dots after it.
Right.
And it was Malcolm McDowell's first movie. And it was about a prep school, a bunch of guys at a prep school who take it over and have an armed rebellion and like shoot the teachers. Wow. And at that point, I was in the year and a half I spent at a prep school in New Jersey, and that thing hit me close to home. Wow. I was like, that's what I want to do. But we didn't have an armory, unfortunately.
So wait, you went to, did you go to Lawrenceville? Where did you go to New Jersey?
I went to a place called the Hun School.
Oh, yeah, I know where that is.
Which is in Princeton. And
I went to Lawrenceville for a year, which is right up the road. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Lawrenceville, I was on the soccer team. I was a goalie. And one year we beat Lawrenceville. And I met a guy named Herbie Shute, who went to Lawrenceville, and I met him in Denver. He went to school in Denver when I went to school in Denver.
Right. And
when we exchanged that information, he said, that was the lowest point of our whole soccer career, losing to you guys. And I'm like, you're welcome. I was the goalie. Fuck you.
Right. That's funny. I remember that.
Oh man, but
that's very funny. So do another song, and I'll show you my theremin thing.
All right. I'll show you my theremin if you show me your glockenspiel. Well, it blew up the chicken man in Philly tonight. Blew up his house too. Down on the boardwalk, getting ready for a fight. Gonna see what them racket boys can do. Now there's trouble busting in from out of state, and the DA can't get no relief. Gonna be a rumble on the promenade, and the gambling commissioner's hanging by the skin of his teeth. Oh, everything dies, baby, that's a fact. Maybe everything that dies someday comes back. Put your makeup on and fix your hair up pretty. Meet me tonight in Atlantic City. Oh. Well, I got a job and trying to put my money away. I got the kind of debts no honest man can pay, so I drew what I had from the Central Trust. Bought me 2 tickets on that Coast City bus. Oh, everything dies, baby, that's a fact. Maybe everything that dies someday comes back. Put your makeup on and fix your hair up pretty. Meet me tonight in Atlantic City. Oh, well, our luck may have died and our love may be cold, but with you forever I'll stay. Going out where the sands turn into gold. Put on your stockings, babe, the night's getting cold. Everything dies, that's a fact. Maybe everything that dies someday comes back. Put your makeup on and fix your hair up pretty. Meet me tonight in Atlantic City. Oh, looking for a job, but it's hard to find. Down here it's winners and losers. Don't get caught on the wrong side of that line. Tired of coming out on the losing end. Last night I met this guy, gonna do a little favor for him. Oh, everything dies, that's a fact. Maybe everything that dies someday comes back. Put your makeup on, fix your hair up pretty. Meet me tonight in Atlantic City. Oh, tonight in Atlantic City.
That was nice.
Thank you. I used to play like at a farmer's market thing in the middle of Bridgeport in Levy Park or something like that.
Was that like up Park Street? Like
it was kind of in the middle. Like I don't know Bridgeport well enough, but I was always sitting there looking at the architecture and just thinking, what a beautiful little town. Like, just the architecture is incredible. But I used to play there, and I always used to connect this song to like Bridgeport, because that's really kind of like a Bridgeport story where corruption and everything's fucked up. And,
yeah, right.
Like,
I remember there was a
Bridgeport
movie.
Like
there was a movie that I saw. I can't remember what movie. It had Chaz Palminteri in it and a bunch of other people, and it was about this. Oh, it was Sean Penn was in it, and I want to say Robin Wright Penn was in it, and it was about like addicts and bad relationships and like in a horrible place in a horrible city. And at the end of the movie, the last shot is that they're at this barbecue in like Chaz Palminteri, who's like the big man about town. And they do a helicopter pull, like they didn't have drones back then. They had a helicopter, and they did a pullback, and it was in Black Rock. It whole thing took place in Bridgeport. I was like, wait a minute, that's the everything, Captain's Cove and everything.
Right.
But it was like derelicts and drug addicts and violence and crime and corruption. It was just the worst.
But I mean, Bridgeport, particularly from altitude, is gorgeous. And I was going to a wake in Boston, and this guy I knew was like the president of Oxford Medical. So we took a private plane from that little airport that was in Bridgeport. That
Right.
tiny. It was mostly a private jet thing. And when we got up and did like the sort of turnaround, I'm looking down. I'm just going like, this is fucking Rhode Island. This is like anywhere. This is like gorgeous.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
The fact that the areas on the coast of Bridgeport are not developed into amazing things blows my mind. There used to be an amusement park there.
Yep.
Pleasure Beach, is that what it's called?
Right.
And it's beautiful. It's incredible. And it's abandoned. Like you could walk there miles and miles to get there in marshes and whatever. But there's still a carousel there, like all shut down. But the fact that that's not developed is just a sign that
the taxes are tough, and I mean, and by that I don't just mean the state taxes, which everybody bitches about, but the taxes in Bridgeport are tough, and the taxes are tough in every town that's diverse, every town that has multiple high schools, every town that the taxes are not tough in Westport, they're not tough in Darien, they're not tough in Richfield, Reading, etc. But they're tough in Norwalk, Stamford, Bridgeport. It's counterintuitive.
It is counterintuitive, but yeah. So, but that is a great song. I love that song. Who did that song originally? Who was that?
Springsteen.
Oh, it was Springsteen, right? Of course.
Yeah, and there's a good version of it done by Levon Helm from the band. He did a really good version of it. I think they might have even done it on one of their albums. I don't know, but
yeah, I played an accordion on the version of that once.
Accordion would be great on that. Like really great on that.
Yeah, that's a good one. We did a video on that. Mike and I Baumwald did a video for Last Minute Productions on that song.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty sure, yeah. And actually, I sat outside in the cold, in the woods. Like I sat in the woods playing the accordion, like
because they told you there's just too much bleed, but really they just didn't want it in the studio. That was
no, it was during COVID, so I was here, and it was like I have this like acre of woods right behind me here, so I was like, I'll just go in the woods with a chair and go sit in the woods.
You're doing it remote. You're doing it all remote, right?
And then I sent it in. Yeah, I remember doing that.
Did you get the chance to play much with Mike in the flesh? Like,
yeah, we did.
Bands?
I met Mike through a band called Infinity Edge, and they started at my Friday night showcase thing that I used to do. Right. And every once in a while, there's a band that played at those things, and I was like, "You were great, and I'm in your band now." And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm in your band now. I'm in the band." Like Hot Rubber Monkey Band was one of those bands that started at my jam, and I'm playing with them now. And so I met Mike through that group, and they came in, and then they had a variety of staffing changes in that group, and there was a gig that I couldn't do because it was on a Friday night. I want to say they played Garcia at the Capitol Theater. I want to say that was the gig, the fateful gig. And I was having a wonderful time. We used to go do Vineyards out in Long Island. It was like the best reggae band, feel good thing. And really, really good. Nice people, just a great vibe. And they said, "Hey, Ed, we really want to do that Garcia gig." Or I think that was the one. And they said, "Do you know somebody that could sub for you? Because we definitely want to do the show." And I said, "Look, I have somebody who could sub for me, but you will then fire me and hire them." And they're like, "No, we would never do that." And I'm like, "You will call me and in a nice way say, you know what? We found our match and it's not you, right?" I was like, "They're
going in a different direction.
We would never do that, right?" And so after the gig, it was Karen Johnstone, right? So after the gig, she's a reggae powerhouse keyboard player. Like that's what she does. And she sings backups and does the skank and the bubble at the same time while singing backups and dancing. Like it was just crazy. Yep. And so Mike Balwell called me up and he said, "So Ed, you play with," I'm like, "Son of a bitch." He's like, "You play with a lot of bands and whatever, so," but I did a few shows with them, at not Captain's Cove, at Bobby O's. What's the name of that place out there? Captain such as Stratford. I can't remember the name.
Oh yeah.
On the water in Stratford by the bridge. And so
it's underneath the thruway, right?
Yeah, right. I can't remember the name of it right now. And so I did a bunch of gigs. So, and we knew each other in person as well as the pandemic. So,
I drove by today. the old neighborhood of Bobby Q's, and I was just wondering, is there anything going on in that space?
I doubt it.
I don't mean in terms of music, but I just mean in terms of anything. Like
No, I can't imagine. I can't imagine. It was not a successful. He made a decision, and it could have been because of what he was going through with his health.
Right.
But he made a decision that he didn't want to pay the rent over at the, where Barcelona, there's like a food court around the corner, which is a way better location. It's all kind of great, but the rent was probably 3 times the rent. And he went, you know what? I'll have a good takeout business from here. The rent's cheap. The parking's great. I'll just do that. And then we made something out of it musically as well.
And there's sort of the promise, as there is all over. I had to sit through a meeting last night of a couple of guys from the P&Z in Norwalk giving a meeting for the 6th taxing district, which is basically row 8. And I mean, after it, first I had everyone take away my shoelaces, my belt, and any sharp objects. I just said, please take that. After it was actually great. I went to Rory's where Neil Curry and John Flom and Megan Tyne were playing, and we had a great time, like doing like 3-part and having like fun time. But this thing, it was just like all of the stuff that's going on in Norwalk. I don't share the vision of seeing who is going to inhabit these things. We're building so much housing, and you would think that something like Bobby Q's is sort of notched into a place where there's a lot of housing and the food was good. And
they never came. As a matter of fact, the only people we ever saw from the building, maybe 2 or 3 people from the building, but we got this one couple, they called the cops on us several times. And so Bobby and I went up to their apartment. They're like, we work all week and Friday night and you're playing this loud music with us. So we go up and Bobby said, bring some test equipment that we can measure the sound levels. I'm like, I don't have that stuff. He's like, fake it. Yeah. Like, so I brought like a recorder and some mics and like headphones or whatever. And a theremin. Right. Exactly. And so we walk into the place and it is silent. Like you can't hear the dishwasher or it's silent. It's on the 5th floor in the same building. And I'm going like this, like, I'm like, and they're like, you hear it. The band was playing downstairs at my event on Friday. And Bobby and I are like, you hear that? And they're like, yeah, you can't hear it. That thumping, boom, boom. And we're like, what? Like, that's what I said. Why don't you turn the TV on? Like, it was so quiet. It was coming off the building across the street, bouncing 5 flights up. It was like unbelievably quiet. And, but no, we didn't see any of those people from the building ever.
It's funny, it's funny. Like,
but you want to hear something? You know what? I'll shed some light on this. When I moved to Connecticut from New York City, I lived in New York for 3 years. I was in business, and I moved to Connecticut to take a job in venture capital, aviation venture capital in Stanford, and I had a house in Weston. And I had played in bands in college for 4 years. I was playing 4 nights a week at bars, going and seeing bands. That was my life, right? When I came to Connecticut, I didn't know a music venue. I didn't go and see one band for 12 years. Wow. It didn't occur. I never heard of the Black Duck. Like I didn't know CD's Jam and the Next Door Cafe and the Terrace Club and nothing, because I was focused on, with blinders on, my career and my traveling for that and whatever. But I did not look for I didn't know. Somebody would have said, hey, I'm in town, let's go see some live music. I'm like, I don't think we have that here. You have to go to New York for that. So, and there was a raging live music scene, but I literally never went to one thing.
I really loved CDs in the Next Door. Those, the Next Door had a great, it had a great thing. And I used to go there with Fonda Feingold and Sarah Brooks. And our approach was really more vocal. We would go there to sing. Right. And the back line was like, Scott Spray and CD and, they were all just great players. But, we didn't go in there, like I'd walk in with a guitar and everyone would look at you like, who is he? What does he do? And it's like, no, boys, this isn't that. This is, we're going to be singing Smokey Robinson. It's not, it's not what you think, because that's the fun,
Yeah, I missed that place completely. Like Blues Patrol guys were there with their Blues Brothers outfits in the car parked outside. I missed all those days. That was when I was working and I didn't focus. So I think that's what's happening, is that the people who are moving to Norwalk are moving there for, I work for ASML. They just hired 1,000 people. We're building machines to build microcomputers, and they're not out seeing live music.
Right. Right.
And the one night that they go out and see music, it's some guy playing at Nomad, and he doesn't
it's
know
a
anything.
boring fucking old guy at the thing, and
Like,
it's just I can't say that I didn't walk out of there though without like questions about my existence musically,
That's
and
right.
it's like generally I don't beat myself up much because there's so many great musicians in the world, and it's like I like many of them and I know a lot of them, and that's good. Speaking of which, here's like a bass-ackwards plug by a guy who really doesn't know how to have a career in this.
Okay.
On the night that I'm playing at Rory's, which is Wednesday, June 14th, maybe, or something like that.
Yep.
There's this band that you may be familiar with called Leonid and Friends. They're a Russian band that does, I mean, honestly, just write down Leonid, like Leonid,
like the astronaut. Yep.
Leonid and Friends. Just write it down and look at anything that they do.
Are they from around here?
No, they're from Russia.
Wow.
They're playing at the Wall Street Theater.
Wow.
Which I would have gone to in a heartbeat, because this is a level of cover band shit that's off the charts, and yet they're having fun and they're Ruskies, and like somehow they made it through. I found them on Facebook. They're on Facebook.
They're from Siberia.
I don't know where they're from, but they did a lot of things like Mike's videos, kind of, except everybody was in the same place. They did stuff, and brilliant. Like the drummer in this band is just like, when they do like September, or Fantasy by Earth, Wind and Fire, the guy has like, here's like this white Ruski doing like Philip Bailey and like fucking doing it.
They're from Siberia. They're from Novosibirsk in Siberia, because the drummer that I played with for many years was Russian from Siberia. He used to say, "Oh, I go back every year," and it's so cold. The only thing they have to do is play music, and they are all amazing musicians, like world class. All of them. Every idiot on the street is an amazing player, and they have a jazz scene, and they have a rock scene, and they have electric, funk, and heavy metal.
These guys started as a Chicago band. That's what they started at, not the town, the band. They started as a band that did Chicago. Their Chicago stuff is off the charts, and they have one guy who sounds like Robert Lamb singing, and they have another guy who sounds like Peter Cetera, and they have this gorgeous female singer in the band whose name is Ksenia. And she's fabulous, but she could do Chaka Khan, like she, I mean, it's just like, they do Ain't Nobody by Chaka Khan. It's great. They did My Old School by Steely Dan, and they freaking killed that, And I mean, they're playing. If you can't be at Rory's to see the old man who will bore you to freaking tears,
there you go.
Go to the Wall Street. The tickets are $48 to like $73.
Oh wow! Okay.
I would have gone in a heartbeat to see this. They're amazing.
I'm gonna check that out.
You're gonna see
what you're talking about.
This is gonna blow you away. Like honestly, and it's not unlike it's not unlike the stuff that you were doing with Mike, like those videos.
Yeah, right. So let me ask you. Let me change gears. So I've been pulling my synthesizers out and doing various things, trying to get organized for like playing. Saturday I'm going into the city to play with Lorenz and Raphael in the Theraminos. Like I might do a show with them. And so, because I've got my theremin, this is my theremin here, right? I don't know if you've seen that.
Right.
This is my theremin. I'm gonna hold on. Let me do this. I
thought that was the back of a TV set.
There you go. This is the theremin. It's
got
a little display and some knobs over here. And then I've got my little Eastern European microsynths and a little mixer, a little passive mixer, right? And I put that on top and whatever. And the whole idea is that I want to play with them, but I really do more this modular synth stuff. I'm not a skilled theremin player. Not like they are. They're better at that. They've done that way longer, and I can sort of do it here. Let me fire this guy up. So I have to move this because the theremin it's an SG2. This thing here is an antenna. Right. It is disc, and then this is an antenna. Right. This pops out and goes into the bottom of it. So it's like a spaceship. It's like a George Jetson little spaceship looking thing, right? But
the oblong thing works,
This thing is interfering with the magnetic field, so I got to move my mic out of the way, otherwise you won't hear it at all. So let me show you just for a second what this thing sounds like.
And for those who just tuning in right now, it'll be like, what the hell?
Right. So I don't know. You can hear me now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but I've got to get it away from the theremin because it'll interrupt the magnetic field. So this is this is what the theremin. Let me see if I can get this. So this antenna is volume. Right. And this antenna is pitch, but I have an unusual patch in here. This is like a synthesizer as well as a theremin. So.
And is that delay that you have on there as well, or?
Exactly. Well, that's this guy right here.
Right. I think that means there's some uranium in your pocket.
So the theremin is controlling the microsynth and various things.
So it's the synth that's creating that kind of arpeggiator kind of effect, right? But
the theremin is actually controlling multiple parameters simultaneously. Watch this. That's this guy. So there it is. So in other words, you can set up these little microsynths to react to the theremin as well. The theremin can output voltages that then tie into these little devices, and you can reprogram them.
I think in particular, the first thing you were doing, the first demonstration we were doing, was very musical and pretty.
Exactly. It's the theremin itself can be very, very musical. So
because when the patch is working with the synth, it gets kind of synthy. It doesn't feel as much like a theremin, and I know it's controlling it in two different things, but it still sounds
well. So what I think is going to happen, I don't know. I don't know what these guys are like, but they have 4 theremins going at the same time. So
4 theremins, no waiting.
Yeah, exactly. So they have this whole thing happening, and I may just insert some little attitude-y sounds and whatever that I also play on the theremin, but I may not have my theremin live. We'll see. We'll see.
And are they playing songs or compositions or something?
We're going to find out. Yeah, they have set lists and they have things that they do. So I have yet to get to know what those are. I'm going to show up completely cold. And so we shall see how it goes,
Hey, why not? I mean, it's pretty cool. And, to me, like the sum total of everything I knew about theremin was really, what was it? The Lemon Pipers with Green Tambourine, or I forget.
Right. And the Beach Boys.
Yeah, that too. But what was that? Was it Green Tambourine, or no? It wasn't Green Tambourine. It was something else. But there was a band that had a top hit. And Good Vibrations obviously was a giant hit. But
right.
And you just knew. Can you play
There's
this?
all kinds of theremin.
Can you play that?
So so the theremin, it's a really cool thing, and I'm gonna be figuring out what my place is in that world. But in the process of learning all this, do you know what an ARP 2600 is, synthesizer?
I don't know that I do.
It's a famous synth, and I learned today. I have an ARP 2600, and it's one of the great. The Buchla, the Moog, or Moog, as they say now, and the ARP 2600 were famous synthesizers. And that sound that What's the sound? It's on "Don't Get Fooled Again." Is that the name of the song by the Who?
Oh yeah.
Right. That
Yeah.
is Pete Townsend playing the ARP 2600, but he doesn't play the oscillators. He processes the guitar through it. And I
Oh,
never
okay.
knew what he was using there. So I watched a video today about how he did it and how he created. He was a big innovator in using guitars with synthesizers back in the 60s. And so I'm thinking of using my ARP with this. And ARP is a funny name. I also learned today that the guy that invented the ARP, one of the guys who started the company, his name was Alan. What was his last name?
Beaver?
That was his initials. ARP were his initials.
Oh, okay.
And so
It's not Alan Parsons, right?
No. It's some nerdy guy, some electronics guy who said, well, if Moog is doing it, and if like the modular Moog was $25,000 in the 60s, like nobody could afford that. And,
well, I misheard you because I thought you were saying ARC with a C. ARP was famous. I mean,
the ARP Odyssey and the ARC 2600 were famous.
ARP was well known,
Right. And so he said, well, I want in on this, and I'm going to make one that's 2,500, not 25,000, that people could take to gigs. And they invented this thing, and then Pete Townsend jumped on it, and a bunch of Herbie Hancock and a bunch of other people jumped on that. And it's a very cool thing.
I mean, were you old enough to take notice when Wendy Carlos did like the switched on Bach thing?
Sure,
that was a huge moment in electronic music. I thought
that was it. They had a problem, which is all of these synthesizers were very expensive and very large, and they were run by educational institutions and scientific companies. They weren't by musicians. And she came along and said, I'm going to play some music that I think would fit with this monophonic thing. And the public just jumped on it. And then everybody started buying synthesizers. That's when ARP started, Moog synthesizers. She used Moog synthesizers, modulars. But the synth she played that on was a $25,000, $25,000 in the 60s. You could buy a house for $25,000.
And I think we've talked about this before. The guys who were really instrumental in Stevie Wonder during his great period, which were these two guys who had a band called Tonto, like Tonto, but with a period in between each letter. And again, it might have been an ARP that they had. That might have been. But they brought the Crayola box to Stevie, and Stevie could imagine what he wanted to do, and they helped him do it. And it's great when it's worked like that. And when I had that, I don't know. Did you ever get that? Did you ever get that synth working that I gave you? Does that work?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm so stupid. Like I didn't know about the arpeggiator thing. I always thought it was like, because you're listening to guys like, Billy Joel who can do like 16th notes, like rolling on a bed, and you're listening to this and you're just thinking like, yeah, what the fuck? Some guy on a synth, Rick Wakeman is just going like,
right.
And I'm just like, what? And then I'm sitting here myself and I go, and I'm just like, look at me.
What Pete Townsend was doing was he was creating arpeggios with the guitar by it was going like down, up an octave, and then up an octave from there. Right, and he was playing guitar in between that, and it sounded like he was playing 64th note triplets, which but he was only playing 16th note triplets.
Right, and they had that other song. Play Together with the Band that had, it was a thing like, like that kind of thing,
Yeah, he was an innovator with synthesizers, but I was never sure how he did it. I thought, he must be using some guitar pedal trick or a Roland Space Echo or something, but he was using the ARP 2600. I watched a video on it today.
And then, when you
thinking of doing this with an ARP 2600, but this is kind of cooler to look at, like something little,
Yep.
Well, the ARP is this big, it's like giant.
The coming of, like the Mellotron, like that was something that was like gigantic, and you know, it's like the Moody Blues, you know, that whole album that was, you know, Days of Future Past, that whole thing, you know.
Right.
I saw them at the Fillmore East once, and they had a freaking Mellotron there, and it was like, you know, just like, what the hell is that?
The Mellotron had a tape loop in it that was, it was like 3 feet wide. The tape width was 3 feet, and it would loop through the machine. And when you press the keys, tape heads would lower down onto this looping giant tape. I mean, it's like crazy what they did.
Well, it's you know, it's kind of, you know, I understand the advantages of digital and I understand all of that, but there's just something funny when you read like Jeff Emmerich's book, the guy who was the Beatles' right-hand man. And, you know, he was the guy where Lennon would go to him and say, you know, I want the guitar to sound like it's playing under 6 feet of water. And then he'd use it with a Leslie, and it hadn't quite been done before. And all the stuff with like slowing down tapes, speeding up tapes, you know, the piano solo in My Life, which was really, you know, it sounds like a harpsichord, but it's George Martin playing the piano solo, and then they speed it up, and so much of it is like hand done, and you're cutting it and putting a piece of Scotch tape on something, and you're doing all this, and it's like there was, you know, it was really a facile art in those days. You know, it was like you had to do something to it. It wasn't just like beep. You know,
I saw an interview once with Edgar Winter, and Edgar Winter widely associated with keyboards, a keyboard player.
Yeah.
And he had an ARP 2600, and what they did was the song that they used to warm up at the studio and at shows was the song that eventually became Frankenstein, right? Right. They would do that on keyboard, but they would do it on guitars, and they would use that as a warm-up song. And one day in the studio, they recorded that warm-up song, and it was like 12 minutes long. And they went, you know, if we could edit that down to 3 minutes or 4 minutes, we could release this. And so then he got real serious. So they didn't re-record it as a shorter song. They literally took razor blades. They took a stereo mix of it. They cut the tape, and they laid the tape all around the room with the different parts. And they're like, why don't we take that part and we'll splice it with this part?
It's insane.
And they had the tape laying over the mixing console, like all loose, like they do film editing. And they were taping it. And the guitar player, whose name escapes me, a famous guy that everybody knows.
Rick Derringer.
Rick Derringer, right. Rick Derringer said, oh my God, like the studio was a mess with all this tape hanging all everywhere. Like the tape was hanging from everything. And he said, this song is like a Frankenstein, how we're putting it together. And he said, that's the name of the song. That's how it happened.
That's funny.
Because
he had in that band,
razor blades.
He also had in that band a guy named Dan Hartman, who was a brilliant musician, and great songwriter. And he was in Connecticut, you know, like he lived like, I think in Westport. You know, Crispin knew him pretty well, but Edgar was freaking great and good sax player. You know, like interesting sax player.
Yeah, it's just an all-around musician. You know, now the kids today are playing every instrument, but you know, these guys are like notes are notes. So I just have to teach my fingers how to use the instrument, and the notes are the notes.
You know, his first album, you know, his first solo album, he might have played on some of Johnny's stuff, like as a sax player or something like that. But he had this album called Entrance, which still to me is one of my, you know, it's probably top 20, you know, like for me. And it's, you know, it has one of those great things where, you know, a sequenced side of it where, you know, everything sort of runs together a little bit, you know, and it's brilliant, you know, and he's all over the place, you know, jazz, blues, whatever, you know. It's like crazy. When they ask if white men can sing the blues, how about really white men? Can they sing the blues? You know?
Good stuff. So play another song for us.
You call me up late, you're loaded and say, can I come talk? And I'm thinking, no way. You're dumping that guy. When he asked why, I bet you said, hey, if you're ready or not, you change your mind. You decided maybe that he wasn't your type. Baby, you change your mind, and it's not my problem, no, not this time. Now wasn't that great? Remember the date? You never showed up and you never explained. You did it again. I'm sorry for him, only too well I remember it when you change your mind. You decided maybe that I wasn't your type. Baby, you changed your mind. It knocked me down for quite some time. Do you think I'm blind? Could I be sympathetic for the old times? Baby, you changed your mind, and you said I'm ready or not. If you're ready or not, goodbye. Ready or not, if you're ready or not, goodbye. Remember, you changed your mind. You decided maybe I wasn't your type. Baby, you changed your mind, and you said, hey, ready or not, if you're ready or not, goodbye. Ready or not, if you're ready or not, goodbye. Ready or not, if you're ready or not, goodbye.
Very nice. Very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So it's just us, huh?
It's just us tonight. You know, some nights it's just like that. Will Baird is home. I hope you're watching Will Baird. Hope you're doing okay. He's got allergies and allergy season kicking up. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm starting to get gigs this summer. Like the phone's starting to ring a little bit. So kind of think a couple of things with the Blues Patrol coming up. Oh, you know, McDuff's. Do you know McDuff's in Greenwich?
I was gonna tell you this. I just heard that today.
They're gone. They lost their lease. So
well, he didn't want to pay for, I mean, they were gonna. Or maybe they just wanted him out. I guess.
No, I think they're selling the building and they're turning it into something else. But yeah, that's a Greenwich institution for years and years, and they're gone.
Yeah, so 18 years.
So there's talk that I heard that we're going to play there one more time with Hot Rubber Monkey Band, but that was our home. Like we played that place all the time.
Well, it's funny because I sent that out to Jen Seam and Mike Muggeridge, and because we had played there a bunch of times. And Jen said the same thing. I hear that they're booking people for the very, it's like every person who ever played there is getting that info. But but you play there with like a real ass full band, right?
A dance band.
That's to me that is the word that helps me define what we're talking here. Like when you I will ask somebody. I'll ask them a couple of things. I'll ask, have you ever heard me before? And then I'll ask them, are you looking me to do something specific? Like what are you looking for something? And to me, if they're looking to make people, stay at the tables, have another drink, do something, like hang out and do that.
Yeah.
I feel pretty good about that. If they want to get people dance, I don't want that pressure, to tell you the truth, because to me, there is no, there's no rhyme or reason to what people dance to. There really isn't. And there's some things that are probably today become cue songs, like they're trigger songs, like
the Mustang Sally of our time.
Right. And like to me, when I think of like the perfect song of all time, segueing back to Leonid and Friends, but the perfect song is September. Like I don't care what you are, who you are, where you are. my daughter's getting married on June 10th. There is no way in hell the band is not playing that. There's just no way in hell. That is like the feel-good song of, and I mean, Earth, Wind, and Fire in general is just such an uplifting, it's like funky as shit, but it's like such an uplifting thing, like what Maurice White had going there was like just crazy good.
Like, take me to church, that guy, yep.
Well, I mean, he did all, take you to church and take you to, like whatever in the city. And they sort of had one of those like spaceships that came down. They did, big effects kind of thing.
Yep.
But Liquid and Friends.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, do one more song, and we're gonna do a song. You got any 145 song? Because it's show 145. You gotta do a. All right, you did it. You can say you did it.
God, I'm trying to think of like a 145 song.
They're a 145, one more or less.
Yeah, that's not Elvis Costello is not 145. Jesus Christ!
By the way, so Herb Alpert, right? I did some Cinco de Mayo shows on the accordion. I played the organ and the accordion, and I learned something new that Herb Alpert. Guess what ethnic background Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. Herb
Jewish.
Alpert. What do you think? Jewish. Very good. He's Ukrainian. He's a Ukraine. His parents were Ukrainian Jewish immigrants. He grew up in L.A., so yeah, I'll give him a pass.
And they, for one thing, the template they had was off the charts, but also, he's the A in A&M Records. He and Jerry Moss, and I always thought that label really was a good label. I always felt like they had the Tubes on there early on, which is one of my favorite bands, and they were really, God, a 145.
He got $800 million for his share when they sold A&M Records.
$800 million.
So my good friend, I don't know if I told you the story. My good friend Charlie, who was my roommate in boarding school when I was very young, he. I saw him after 45 years. I saw him in LA, and I looked him up, and his dad, who's 95, who I remember was alive, and we all went to lunch. And I said, so what are you doing, Charlie? He said, I'm in public relations. I go, well, for what? He goes, well, I do entertainment properties. And he says, I'm a public relations guy for Herb Alpert. I go, Herb Alpert, right? And, Herb Alpert like came out in 1964 when I was born,
right.
And so Charlie goes, yeah. I said, is he even around anybody? He goes, oh yeah, he does like 50 shows a year. I go, he does 50 shows a year. I said, he must really need the money. Charlie goes, like, that's hysterical, right?
Did we talk about Herb Alpert before?
Yeah, we talked about it. And he said, he's got like a private jet, and he flies around the country. He meets his band, and he plays a show, and then flies home and goes. So he's 88 years old. He does 50 shows a year. So there you have it.
He probably made a fortune just having like, what was it? Spanish Fly being the theme song to the Newlywed Game or something.
Then, the dating game too.
And he's playing the horn on that, and then he does a Burt Bacharach cover. That was.
But they don't screw around. They're like Henry Mancini in that it is written. They're not winging it. The song has an A section. The song has an intro and an A section and a B section, and they're out. And maybe it modulates, and they're out. And it's very straight ahead, and every drum hit and every note is planned and written. And the band plays it like it's written. It's a different era of music.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I think he had the Tijuana Brass. I would be surprised if the Wrecking Crew didn't also play on most of those recordings.
You're probably right.
I mean, sometimes the guys that go out and the guys that are on the album cover are one thing, but it's just like. It's so funny. Think about the lives of those guys that contributed to so much. And only recently, and in some cases, after they had slipped the mortal coil, did they get the kind of credit that they deserved. But
they did it, and they got the payday. They got paid to be. They ran from session to session. They were doing fine. So
and they freaking love that. There was last night we were playing like a bunch of things, and we played like Ride Like the Wind, right? So Megan Tyne was doing the verses, and then when it came to the Michael McDonald part, Neil was doing a such a long way to go, like that kind of thing.
Yep.
And there's a funny ass video that was from the Canadian comedy show called SCTV, where so many like great comics came from.
Yeah.
And it was the recording of that song. And they had one of the guys who sort of dressed up like Michael McDonald, sort of tooling down Santa Monica Boulevard, pulling into the studio. And, you're hearing in the background, you're hearing that. You're hearing like that thing going on. And then, he comes in and he's writing the paperwork. And suddenly it's his part. He runs in the studio, such a long way to go. And then he comes back in and he's doing more paperwork and shit. And then he comes back in,
Right.
Such a long way. It's so fucking funny.
Good stuff. All right, do a 2-9 flat 8. There it is.
It's like I can't believe I can't come up with like a 1-4-5 that's just so obvious.
It was a teenage wedding and the young folks wished them well.
There it is.
You could say that Marie did surely love the mademoiselle. And when the words went on, the proper tempo of the music fell. Boy, c'est la vie, said the old folks. It goes to show you never can tell. Where's the 4? They bought a 2-room flick. It was a 2-room Roebuck sale. The coolerator was crammed with TV dinners and ginger ale.
Wait, Chuck, you didn't want to go TV dinners and ginger ale? No, it's going with, it's 1-5-1-5. There's no 4 in that at all. It's like that's a forlorn attempt.
1-5. That's like a New Orleans kind of thing. 1-5-1-5-1-5. Right?
It is. It's like totally, God, I get it. This is so funny because I'm trying to think of.
Well, any blues song is 1-4-5, right? 12-bar blues is 1-4-5.
Well, come on, baby, whole lot of shit going on. Come on, baby, whole lot of shit going on. Well, now, baby, gonna
That's
it.
that's the template, Boy. Yeah, you can play like Steely Dan. He can't play a 1-4-5, which actually is not unusual. You meet guys that can play Steely Dan and they can't play a 1-4-5.
Right.
I didn't think I was one of them, but maybe I am.
All right, play some Steely Dan. How about that?
What do you think I'm some fucking jukebox or something?
Play some dance music.
Baby's running out, hanging with the crowd. Put your business on the street, talking out loud. Gonna have a time for this, join for that. Swear it must be. Hey, you better cool back down to the sad, sad truth, the dirty low down. I wonder what you do. Boy, there's no 4 in this. Ooh, no 5. Wonder what you do.
The people in Nomad were right. I suck.
Nothing you can't handle, nothing you ain't got. Put your business on play, drive the car right off the lot. Gotta be a thing for this, Jones for that. It's running after Jones, is just ain't where it's at. Whoa, you better turn that thing around to the sad, sad truth, the dirty low down. Ooh, I wonder what they do. Who put those thoughts in her head? Ooh. Wonder, 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 wonder who. If you want to help Bill, there's a number you can call, and they'll give him guitar lessons. Oh, sure. If I had like a little thing with all these things plugged into it, I could just go, you know, like.
Do you do that when you gig? Do you have a book, or do you do it all out of your head?
I basically musically, it's mostly out of my head. Words is where I get sidetracked, you know, because again, it's just like if I had 35 songs and I played the same 35 songs every time, you know, it would be different because things that I play all the time, I do know pretty well. But I just, you know, the problem is you add shit and I don't know, you know, it's embarrassing, I must say, you know, and people who have, you know, like iPads think that, you know, like, they think that somehow they're superior to people that have books, you know.
Right. I kind of like the book thing. If you're going to do it, you know, like you play with a big band, they give you a freaking book this thick,
Right,
you know,
right.
like Page. You ever see Sonny Carroll Orchestra? You ever? They were like,
No.
they were around the area. I think he lived in Danbury. I want to say he owned an auto shop, but he was an arranger back in the 50s, whatever. And Sonny Carroll, I used to go see him. Joe Mayo played with him, and he had a real orchestra, and they would all get together at different like wedding halls, whatever, just to practice. And you could go and get a pizza and a glass of wine and listen to them practice. But you know, everybody in the band at the beginning of the thing would get a book, and it was like this thick, and he would be like, "All right, page 912," and they would like open the page, and they would go, "Okay," and then he would stand in front and conduct it. He was like 94 years old or something, and he would be conducting. Sonny Carroll.
Like going to a funeral, you know, Psalm 25, you know.
But he did the arrangements for all of these songs for all of the orchestras. That's what he did back in the day.
That's wild.
And you know, you needed a guy that could create, you know, sheet music for 20-something players and make the books, and that's what he did.
Well, it's funny. My buddy Jimmy Vivino is a real great guitarist, but you know, he worked on later on. He worked on Conan, and at one point, you know, Conan, you know, it was like the Max Weinberg 7, you know, the drummer from Springsteen's thing. But Jimmy did all the work. Like Jimmy went there like at 10 o'clock in the morning and charted stuff and like was writing things out and doing all this stuff, and Max is up there like doing his thing, like I'm with Springsteen, you know, but it's like, you know. He also, you know, he did some movie score stuff. He did, what was the name of the movie? Was it Change of Habit? No, Change of Habit was an Elvis movie. It was the one where Whoopi Goldberg was like a nun. I forget, you know, but he worked on that. If that doesn't like sound compelling, a movie where Whoopi Goldberg is a nun.
Yeah, there you go. It actually, what your story just reminded me of a joke. So there was this joke about, I'll tell the short version because it's not that funny, but it's a pretty good joke. It's the drummer, they're playing on the rooftop in New York, and the drummer is in the back row, and it's like the orchestra's there, the band's there, whatever. The drummer's playing, and the chair slips off the back of the stage, and he falls off the building, and he drops 30 floors down. But just before the street, he hits an awning and rolls off and lands on his feet. And a guy from the top is like, "Oh my God, that's the luckiest drummer in the world." And the guy goes, "No, Max Weinberg is the luckiest drummer in the world."
Well, this is my favorite drummer joke. And if you've heard it, don't stop me. But if you're, so you're looking out over Monument Valley, you know, this western scene. You see cavalry horses riddled with arrows. You see the dead cavalry soldiers. You see there's obviously been a great battle here, and you know, Native Americans, but in those days they were Indians. Indians were shooting, but you know, this is all going on, and you see these two cavalrymen are sort of hunched down in an arroyo, you know, and they're sitting there talking and going like, "Oh Jesus, this is like, you know, this is a freaking disaster." And then suddenly you hear the beating of the drums. It's like, you know,
boom, 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 boom. And, the attack is imminent. It's like boom, 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 boom. And the one guy says to the other, boy, I don't like the sound of that. And over from the Indian side, you hear like, he's not our regular drummer.
That's funny.
That's one of my favorites.
But the other famous drummer joke is that they're in the group is in the jungle in Indonesia, and the cannibals out there, and the guide is like, yeah, they're walking through the jungle, it's getting dark, and they hear boom, 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 boom on the drums, and they say, well, they sound like they're really close. He says, as long as the drum keeps going, you're safe. And they hear boom, 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 and they're like, it's getting closer and closer. The people are like, are you sure we're okay? He says, as long as the drum keeps going, you're safe. Boom, 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 boom. And the drum stops, and they go, what happens now? And he goes, it's something so horrible that you might as well kill yourself now. And they go, what is it? He goes, bass solo. Oh my God. All right, Bill Nolan, that's it for show 145.
Hey,
good to see you. I'm going to play something by Holly McCrary that we did,
nice.
a Mike Baumwall video. Good to see you. I'll see you very soon on GMTV.
See you later, folks.
Sugarfoot called me last night. Said his girl called him. Said, can I come over? He said, yeah. 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 She called him on the telephone. Say, hello, baby, how you doing? Can I come over singing tonight? I promise that you'll be feeling right as you give me love. Hey, I'm the Sugarfoot. Come on over, knocking at my door. I went downstairs and let her in. Straight up to my bedroom we going. Just doing things I never know. Ever give me love. Hey, I'm Sugarfoot. Brought me down straight to my knees. Just doing things I've never seen. Got me crying just like a baby. Told my baby you're just a freak. Hey, just give me love. Hey, oh, Sugarfoot. Hey, where my horns at? You with me? Yeah. You with me? Yeah. You ready? Yeah. I said, no, baby, give it your loving. I need it. I'm squeezing, I'm touching, I'm rubbing. I told you, come on out here, baby. You gotta give me my sugar. Wow, she give me love. Hey. Got me feeling so dang good. Laid up in the middle of the night. My baby don't let me get no rest. Brought me down straight to my knees. Oh, give me love. Hey. Oh, Sugarfoot. Bye.